It's the great, big, broad land way up yonder. It's the forests where silence has lease. It's the beauty that thrills me with wonder. It's the stillness that fills me with peace. Hello, I'm Lorne Greene. Robert Service wrote those words over 80 years ago in his famous poem, The Spell of the Yukon. Alaska was a very special place then, and it's just as special today. Alaska has something for everyone, and despite the ruggedness of this vast frontier, anyone can enjoy what it has to offer. On this Rand McNally video trip, we're going to explore Alaska from Ketchikan in the south to Nome way up north. And we'll look at the various cultures and their histories and discover what there is to see and discover what there is to do. And in the final segment of our video trip, we'll share information with you to help make your trip easier and a lot more fun. So, let's get started. Everyone knows Alaska is big. In fact, the word Alyeska means great land. Yet few of us realize just how big it really is. Alaska is 1/5 the size of all the lower 48 U.S. states combined. It's 2.5 times the size of Texas, 586,000 square miles of land, with 33,000 miles of coastline. And yet the population is less than 500,000. Up north, the Eskimo town of Barrow is the northernmost point in North America, only 1,200 miles from the North Pole. The international date line runs just offshore, and it's one of the few places in the world where you can peer into tomorrow. Alaska goes for all the records, with the highest mountain on the continent, 10 rivers longer than 300 miles, including the mighty Yukon that splashes along for 2,000 miles, 3 million lakes, and more than 5,000 glaciers. The state has the coldest winters, sometimes dropping minus 100 degrees, and it has hot, searing summers that can hit 100 plus. Alaska is rich with furs and fish and timber and oil, and there's still plenty of gold in the mountains, creek beds, and along the sandy shores. Scientists guess that the first visitors came to Alaska from Siberia, about 30,000 years ago. They were hunters, following their furry and finny food supply over a land bridge on the Bering Sea that once connected Asia to North America. When the land bridge was drowned by the melting Ice Age glaciers, Siberian seafarers continued to paddle across, and these early hunters came in waves of different ethnic backgrounds and made up the first residents of Alaska. The Aleuts of the island chain, the Eskimos of the Arctic, who traveled all the way to Greenland, the Tlingit, Haida, and Tsimshian Indian tribes migrated to the milder coastal areas of the Southwest. The Athabascan tribe moved inland. Because of the economic potential, the Russians claimed and colonized Alaska as Russian America, settling first on Kodiak Island, then later in Sitka. Russian America extended as far south as California. But the Tsar found that the American adventure was too far from his capital to control and too expensive to maintain. In 1867, U.S. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated the purchase of Alaska. He paid the Tsar $7,200,000, about 2 cents an acre. But only a few years later, a German investor started the rush for gold in Alaska. In 1880, he sent 2 fun-loving prospectors down the Gastineau Channel to look for gold. Dick Harris and Joe Juno liked the Indian squaws and liked the Indian whiskey more than they liked looking for gold. But between parties, the Indians showed the prospect as a stream where gold was lying in lumps as large as beans. They took out 100 pounds of very good float gold quartz, and the rush was on. In gold rush days, the newcomers to Alaska were called Chichakos. The sourdoughs were the veterans of at least one winter. More than 200,000 Chichakos braved the cold and hostile land, seeking nuggets, they were told, as big as duck eggs lying on the ground. Less than 4,000 of them struck it rich. Many of them died of scurvy or of the cold, though all the survivors called it the greatest adventure of their lives. Legends of characters as large as the land itself were passed on in story and song, like Sam McGee and the Malamute Kid, Dangerous Dan McGrew. Oh, then there was Diamond Tooth Gertie and Soapy Smith and the lady that's known as Lou. We'll start our tour of Alaska in the southeastern area known as the Panhandle. Now, as you'll see, there are very few towns in this area that you can reach by road. As a result, everything, meaning food, people, even houses, are brought in by boat or by plane. The quickest way to get here is by plane, but there are a number of cruise lines operating here each summer, and that's really a great way to enjoy everything along the way. And that's the way we'll start our video trip. All cruise ships set a course through the Inside Passage. It's called a marine highway, and it runs all the way from Seattle to Glacier Bay and Skagway. This protected waterway is a maze of deep channels and forested islands, with few signs of civilization along the way. The busiest port of departure for Alaska is Vancouver, British Columbia, and the start of any cruise is one of its highlights. Everyone feels an exhilaration as the ship moves away from the dock and picks up speed for the voyage north. Your first full day aboard, you could explore the ship itself and find out how to get from your cabin to all the different restaurants and lounges and swimming pools. Then you can stake out a deck chair and watch for eagles, whales, and remote Indian villages. The first major Alaskan community on a journey north is Ketchikan, about a day-and-a-half cruise from Vancouver. Ketchikan means thundering eagle wings. That's what the Indians called a wind-blown waterfall nearby. And it's an appropriate first stop, being somewhat typical of many southeast Alaskan towns, sitting squeezed between steep mountains and a narrow arm of the sea. Ketchikan was established because of the excellent salmon fishing in the surrounding waters, and it was transformed into a boisterous mining camp when gold was discovered. Today, the town is best known for three things: totem poles, great salmon fishing, and rainfall, an average of 151 inches a year. And yet its charm and history make it a favorite stop of all Alaska visitors. Your first stop should be on the pier at the Ketchikan Visitors Bureau, where you can get a free walking guide to the town. This also is the place to board the many tour buses which visit all the town's attractions. Ketchikan has been described as 3 blocks wide and 3 miles long. Waterfront Street is one long row of shops filled with fur coats, knee-high muckluck boots, Eskimo art, and scrimshaw. In the Frontier Saloon is a theatrical version of Harbor Hanky-Panky. They stage a melodrama called The Fish Pirate's Daughter. And just 3 blocks away is the historic district at Creek Street. Its boardwalk runs alongside weather-polished houses built on pilings above Ketchikan Creek, where lovesick salmon swim for romance. In memory of those lovely times, Dolly's house is open for visitors. It's still furnished as in pioneer days, when Dolly, Frenchie, Black Mary, and Blind Polly cast their netted stockings for the men of the salmon fleet. The Indians had no written language, so they carved totems in cedar to record family histories and fanciful legends. And Ketchikan has more totems than any other place in the world. There are several excellent places to view a variety of totems. At Saxman Totem Park, 3 miles south, there are some 22 poles, and you may even see a master carver at work. At Totem Bite Park, 10 miles north, there are 13 poles and a beautiful community house, all nestled by the water's edge. And in town, the Totem Heritage Cultural Center has an excellent collection of original, unaltered poles. White men have argued for many years about the possibility of our being descendants of monkeys, but Indians have no doubts at all. They are sons and daughters of the raven and consider the raven to be sacred. You see the raven symbol repeated on many totem poles, usually near the top in a protective position. If you get tired of touring, remember Ketchikan is known as the salmon capital of the world. Your cruise ship or the Visitors Bureau can help you arrange a fishing trip, and you can even have your catch smoked or frozen and shipped back home. Next along the Marine Highway is the old Russian capital, Sitka. Here, cruise ships tie up where Russian vessels once were loaded with furs to be sailed to China, and ice for the bars of California. A Russian fort was built here in 1799, but in 1802, the Tlingit Indians massacred all those in the colony. 2 years later, the Russian Navy poured cannon shot on the Tlingit village and re-established Sitka as New Archangel, a community that tried to rival Russia's St. Petersburg for fancy dress balls and banquets. In fact, it was known as the Paris of the Pacific. It remained the Tsar's capital in North America until the American purchase of Alaska in 1867. Today, the Onion Dome of St. Michael's Cathedral is the most photographed building in Sitka. It still holds many valuable Russian icons. Sitka has become known for performances of Russian folk dances by the New Archangel Dancers. The troupe consists entirely of local women. Performances are held in the Centennial Building, and the Visitors Bureau can provide you with a schedule of performances. Next stop is at Park rangers tell of strange glacier creatures, ice worms, and ice fleas that live on algae and lichen. And some visitors think they're hearing an Alaska-sized put-on, but others claim they really do exist. Well, I'll leave that up to you. No roads find their way to Glacier Bay. The park is not served by marine highway ferries. Visitors can reach the small community of Gustavus by scheduled Alaska airline flights or by small plane or boat charters. If your ship takes the other route north, you'll cruise the beautiful Lynn Canal. Along the way, you'll see many of the things that make Alaska special: eagles, sea lions, waterfalls, glaciers, magnificent mountains. And at the end of the canal, you'll wind up at Skagway, one of the real rip-roaring towns of the Klondike Gold Rush. Skagway is home of the North Wind, and during the Gold Rush of '98, they say it was the wickedest town on earth. Skagway was the gateway to the Yukon of the Klondike. It was the shortest route to the gold fields, but certainly not the easiest. There were 20,000 people in the town, outfitting for the long hike over White Pass. Of course, miners weren't the only fortune seekers in Skagway. Oh, there were others, like Soapy Smith. Soapy was a Wild West con man who ruled Skagway during the Great Gold Rush of '98. When the Klondike gold ran out, the miners abandoned Skagway for Nome, where the yellow stuff was easily sifted from black sand along the beaches. Today, Skagway's 800 residents preserve the frontier look with old-fashioned false fronts on the Broadway shops. And folks dress the part for tourist cameras. You hear tinny piano notes spilling from saloon doorways. Highly varnished ladies in satins and boots bear a gartered thigh. But these days, it's just part of the show. The Arctic Brotherhood Hall is Skagway's architectural curiosity, built of thousands of pieces of weather-worn driftwood. During summer evenings, you can visit the Friends of Eagles Hall to get a feeling of what Gold Rush days were really like. Enjoy the games of chance, use chips supplied by the house, and then enjoy Skagway in the days of '98. That's a musical show all about Soapy Smith and his band of scoundrels and dance hall girls. When you leave Skagway, you can retrace your path down the Lynn Canal or take an escorted tour the opposite direction, following the trail of the Gold Rush. Skagway is one of the few southeastern Alaska towns that has a land connection to the rest of the state. As you can see, southeast Alaska is a land of contrasts: totem poles and Russian churches, glaciers and gold rush ruins, mighty mountains, modern-day can-can girls. Now, what could the rest of Alaska have to offer that you couldn't find here? Well, you may be surprised at how much more there is to see and do. So let's continue our video trip by moving a few hundred miles west to the city of Anchorage in south-central Alaska. Anchorage is the largest, richest, most powerful city in Alaska. It's 3 hours flying time from Seattle, and its airport is a busy place as a fueling stop on international polo flights. In 1778, Captain James Cook sailed here. He was looking for an inside passage from the Pacific to the Atlantic. He didn't find it. But where he reversed his course, it's called Turn Again Arm. Not much else happened in Anchorage until 1914, when a tent city was established for workers on the Alaska Railroad. It became an anchorage for supply ships from Seattle, and that's how it got its name. Anchorage is a good walking town. You start at the sod-roofed log cabin visitor center at 4th and F Streets, and they'll give you maps and information and tell you all about the town. Around town, you see the peaks of the Chugach Mountains to the east and an awesome view of Mount McKinley to the north. On a walking tour, you'll see the Holy Family Cathedral at 5th and 8th Streets. It was visited by Pope John Paul in 1981. Elderberry Park is where you watch for whales and seabirds. And you can see the Oscar Anderson House, a 2-story frame home from 1919. It's dressed with furnishings of the time and open to the public. There's also the famous Boar Tide, a rushing tide peculiar to Cook Inlet. On Good Friday in 1964, Anchorage shook like a wet sled dog from an earthquake measuring 8.7 on the Richter scale, the strongest ever recorded in North America. 2,000 homes and businesses were destroyed. Earthquake Park at the west end of Northern Lights Boulevard is an unusual display covering 132 acres of what was a posh residential area. If you're interested in native arts and crafts, the Historical and Fine Arts Museum is certainly for you. It's stuffed with traditional native costumes, tools, weapons. To buy native handiwork, try the Alaska Arctic, Indian, and Eskimo Museum. Best buys are whale tooth and walrus tusk carvings, fur jackets and parkas, soapstone sculpture, gold nugget, and jade jewelry. The Ummingmak Muskox Producers Co-op at West 6th and H Street is where you buy clothes made from the very fine wool of the musk oxen. The co-op keeps its own herd of the hairy beasts to supply 200 native women who knit the garments. In other stores, you can buy reindeer steak and sausage, wild berry products, homegrown pork, canned salmon, and Alaskan honey. In winter, skiing is a popular sport. There are 4 ski areas within easy driving distance from town. The Fur Rendezvous is a big party held each February. They call it Fur Rondi for short. And the World Sled Dog Championships are just part of the celebration. There are over 130 sporting events of varying degrees of seriousness, and one of America's largest fur auctions with spirited bidding for pelts of bear, beaver, wolf, and moose. On the first Saturday in March, Anchorage is the jumping-off place for the grueling Iditarod dog sled race, 1,049 miles from Anchorage to Nome. On the outskirts of Anchorage, Eklutna village attracts many tourists. Here the villagers are buried beneath small spirit houses, just as their Indian ancestors have been laid to rest for centuries. The houses provide a place for the spirit to reside after life on earth. Each house has a Russian cross, reflecting the Russian Orthodox influence on the Athabascan Indians. About an hour's drive from Anchorage, in Palmer, history is preserved at the Alaska Historical and Transportation Museum. And here you can see and touch everything from airplanes to a locomotive. One of south-central Alaska's most popular attractions is Portage Glacier, that spills inland icebergs into Portage Lake. It's 50 miles south of Anchorage. Prince William Sound is the place for sailing, fishing, hiking, and for a look at the spectacular Columbia Glacier. A car ferry will take you across the Sound past the massive Columbia ice pack and onto Valdez, the southern terminal for the Alaska Pipeline. Valdez is a year-round, deep-water port. The cruise by Columbia's icy cliff, rising 260 feet above sea level, is the grand event. You're sure to see and hear white thunder. This frozen river is flowing seaward at about 6 feet a day. You make special arrangements through Columbia Glacier Cruises at 547 West 4th Street in Anchorage. If you press on south to the Kenai Peninsula, you'll be in what Anchorage people call their backyard. Like everything else in Alaska, the Kenai Peninsula is huge, over 9,000 square miles, larger than Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Delaware put together. It's bordered by Prince William Sound and the Gulf of Alaska on the east and by Cook Inlet on the west. It has prime fishing, hiking, camping, river rafting, sailing, snowcatting, and all the things that hardy folk like to do. The wildlife is really wild, with wolf packs, herds of moose, mountain goats, black and brown bears, Dall sheep, and bald eagles. Kenai is the peninsula's oldest and largest town. Population, 6,000. It was founded by Russians in the late 1700s, and the antique Russian Orthodox Church is the oldest in the state. The peninsula was originally home to the Dena'ina Indians, a branch of Athabascan and Eskimo families from the interior, and some of the Indian villages still remain. Beluga whales surface at the mouth of the Kenai River, and in town the Chamber of Commerce fishes for tourists. So far, every place we've visited has been near the coast, but the Alaska interior has its own share of spectacular sights, and some of them you'll have to see to believe. Let's move north, out of Anchorage, toward the ever-present view of Mount McKinley. Visit the Matanuska Valley, just north of Anchorage, during the harvest season in late summer. This is Alaska's breadbasket and helps maintain the claim to the largest of everything. The beer is for sale. Walking a greased pole sharpened the agility needed to go from ice floe to ice floe. But not every event is deadly serious. Villagers found many reasons for festive dances and celebrations, and traditions have not been lost. In the settlement of Esther, 7 miles down the Fairbanks Highway, you see the Malamute Saloon. In summer, they put on vaudeville shows and readings of Robert Service poems. The shooting of Dan McGrew always brings down the house. Then I ducked my head and the lights went out, and the 2 guns blazed in the dark, and a woman screamed, and the lights went up, and 2 men lay stiff and stark. Pitched on his head and pumped full of lead was dangerous Dan McGrew, while the man from the creeks lay clutched to the breast of the lady that's known as Lou. As you travel farther north or west from Fairbanks, the environment is definitely not friendly. Remember, you're now right at the Arctic Circle. On the west coast, Nome was founded by hardy souls mining for gold right on the black sand beaches. There's still gold here, and you have a good chance of finding some yourself. Still farther north is Kotzebue, 25 miles beyond the Arctic Circle. This authentic Indian village offers traditional native dances and feasts and the Nana Museum. Now, if Nome isn't far enough off the beaten path for you, the Pribilof Islands may just fill the bill. They're a full 300 miles offshore, and you can get there by boat or by plane. These remote islands are renowned for their rich bird life and sea lion rookeries. Oh, there's a lot more to Alaska to be explored. The great mountain ranges, the misty fjords, the quiet valleys. You could spend a lifetime touring Alaska and still not see it all. I hope you'll visit Alaska soon. You'll be at Chichako only on your first trip. After that, you'll always be a sourdough. Now, in the final part of our Rand McNally video trip, we'll share that information I promised to make your trip easier and a lot more fun. You can get to Alaska by air, sea, or highway. Each way has its own advantages and offers a different perspective of the state. Of course, air travel is the fastest and most frequent, leaving you more time for all the activities. Alaska Airlines has daily direct flights from several West Coast cities to Ketchikan, Juneau, Sitka, Anchorage, and Fairbanks. Other airlines serve only Anchorage and Fairbanks, but have direct flights from cities other than on the West Coast. Once in Alaska, you can make connections to every other town of any size in the state. Flying time from Seattle to Anchorage, about 3 hours. If you're traveling to Alaska between mid-May and mid-September, you may want to consider taking a cruise ship. Several different luxury liners leave from San Francisco, Seattle, and Vancouver to sail up the Inside Passage through southeast Alaska. Some cruise as far as Glacier Bay or Skagway and then return, while others continue on to Anchorage. There are also combination trips which combine cruising and escorted land tours. Cruise ships are really a great way to see Alaska. On board ship, everything is first class, and some people sail just because of the food. Each day can be different than the day before. You can enjoy shipboard activities throughout the day and evening, and wake up the next morning at a brand new town to explore. The state also operates a marine highway system with ferries sailing on a regular basis between Seattle and Alaskan coastal cities. In addition to passengers, the ferries carry cars as well as larger vehicles. They also have staterooms and food service. Getting around in Alaskan towns generally is pretty easy. They're compact enough that most of the attractions are within easy walking distance from your cruise ship or hotel. If you don't want to walk, escorted tours are available in each town to take you to all the highlights, and they'll pick you up right at the pier or at your hotel. Your cruise director or the local visitors bureau can help you make arrangements for a number of different tours. Rent cars are available at all the airports, and if you arrive on a cruise ship, they'll pick you up at the pier and take you to your car. Traveling between smaller towns is usually by means of bush planes. They're a way of life up here, and everyone just considers them taxis that happen to fly. Finally, a great way to travel between Anchorage and Fairbanks is on the Alaska Railroad. It takes about 8 hours, unless there are moose on the tracks. And from domed cars, passengers can enjoy the scenic wonders including Denali National Park and Mount McKinley. The type of weather to expect and the appropriate clothing to bring varies greatly depending on what part of the state you're visiting and, of course, the time of the year. The southeast panhandle area, including Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway, has a moist maritime climate. Juneau has average summer highs in the low 60s and average summer lows in the high 40s. Average winter highs are around 30 degrees and average winter lows are around 20 degrees. The city's monthly average ranges from about 3 inches in April to almost 8 inches in October. And keep in mind that Ketchikan gets about 3 times that amount. The best way to dress is in layers so you can adjust to changing conditions. And always have your rain gear handy. Summer temperatures in Anchorage are about the same as Juneau, with highs in the 60s and lows in the 40s. Winters are colder, with average highs around 20 degrees and average lows between 5 and 10 degrees. Anchorage gets less rain than Juneau, generally averaging less than an inch a month. Your summer clothing should be lightweight with a sweater or light jacket for cooler days and evenings. For winter, dress as if you were going to a ski resort, with a down jacket, wool hat, warm pants and boots, and gloves. Fairbanks has the greatest variety of weather, with warm to hot summer days and cold, cold winter nights. You can expect an average of about 2 inches of rain each summer month, and snow is on the ground from October through April. Your summer clothing should be lightweight with a sweater for the occasional cool days and evenings. Dress for winter seriously, with layers of wool and down and insulated boots and gloves. Alaska offers a wide array of accommodations. Every town has a variety of lodging facilities, and many as nice as you'll find anywhere. Some are modern, others are well-kept older hotels. Of course, if you take a cruise, your ship is your floating hotel. And because everything moves with you, you don't have to keep packing and unpacking. A decided advantage. In Ketchikan, there are 4 lodging facilities, including the Gilmore Hotel in downtown, and a Super 8 motel just outside the downtown area. Sitka also has 4 hotels, including the Sheffield Sitka. Juneau has a number of excellent hotels located both in town and near the airport. The Baranoff, the Sheffield Juneau, and the Alaskan Hotel are favorites. In Skagway, the Klondike Hotel has all modern facilities. Anchorage has the widest variety of lodging in Alaska, with most major chains represented. Included are the Clarion, the Anchorage Hilton, the Sheraton Anchorage, and the Holiday Inn Anchorage. And Fairbanks has several excellent hotels, including Sophie Station, the Fairbanks Inn, and the traveler's inn. For more information, write for the free official vacation planner, published by the Alaska Division of Tourism. It contains information on every aspect of an Alaskan vacation. Well, that's our tour of the 49th state. I know that once you have visited Alaska, you'll want to come back again and again. Until then, I'm Lorne Green, inviting you to your own adventure in the land of the midnight sun.
There are many other Rand McNally programs to great vacation destinations around the world. For a free brochure, call this toll-free number or ask for Rand McNally video trips at your favorite video store or bookstore. It's the best way to make sure your vacation is exactly the way you want it to be.